Before we go any further, I think I should point out that I was unable to record Ken and Andrew on the same night. So this episode is a bit more like a conventional documentary with me cutting between two contributors. Just in case you wonder why Ken and Andrew never actually speak to each other. When Star Wars fever gripped Britain in 1978, Gerry Anderson could only watch from the sidelines. Ironic, since during the 60s and early 70s, he had created a succession of popular science fiction series. But now his production company had been wound up, and his patron, Lord Lou Grade, had moved into film production with varying results. But after a few years of growing nostalgia for Supermarionation, opportunity rose again in 1982 in the form of millionaire businessman and would-be TV producer Christopher Burr. Together they created Terrahawks, a new secret organization flying advanced vehicles from their disguised base, protecting the Earth from alien invaders. But was this the Gerry Anderson comeback viewers were expecting? Welcome back to Very British Futures, the podcast that takes a deep dive into the science fiction produced by UK television since its invention. Today we're looking at a series which has divided fans of Gerry Anderson's programmes. Joining me in my secret headquarters, wearing their jumpsuits in pride, are returning friend of the podcast, Andrew Crines, and co-host of the Exton Moss Experiment podcast, Ken Moss.
Thank you very much, Gareth. It is my pleasure to be here. I am enjoying the fact that tonight I don't have to do any work. So that's my pleasure for this evening. I work very hard, very long hours. I love my job, but it's nice to relax with a podcast at the end of the day. So thank you for having me on board.
I'm all very well, thank you very much. Getting about with life and enjoying things. How about yourself?
Pretty good, welcome aboard. Terrahawks was created by Gerry Anderson and Christopher Burr and first broadcast regionally in 1982 on ITV. It was also sold to several other countries, including the USA and Japan, where it was generally well received. Ultimately, 39 episodes were produced in 3 blocks. In the year 2020, the Mars colony is wiped out by an invasion fleet led by Zelda, a centuries-old android with advanced science and a hatred for all humanity. She intends to conquer Earth with her army of robots and an assortment of alien misfits she has recruited during her voyage. But such a threat has been anticipated by Dr. Tiger Einstein, a genius who has set up Terrahawks, a secret defense force of super vehicles piloted by hand-picked specialists. The team is supported by an army of ball-shaped robots known as Zeroids, operating from Hawk Nest in South America. Their main vehicles are Terrahawk, Battlehawk, Hawkwing, Treehawk and Spacehawk. Also worthy of mention is Hudson, a talking, self-driving limousine, usually chauffeuring Kate Kestrel in her dual role of fighter pilot and famous pop star. The first question, really, that starts at the beginning is, how did you first encounter Terrahawks?
Terrahawks and me first met when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And I remember it being on a Sunday. I seem to remember catching the tail end of University Challenge, which suggests to me this was broadcast on BBC Two. But that doesn't sound right. But we used to go to my auntie's house every Sunday morning for freshly cooked hot buttered scones and tea. And then we'd get home and Terrahawks was on. But yeah, I remember watching it absolutely devoutly. And at the time, I wasn't familiar with Thunderbirds or Stingray or anything like that. So this was my first introduction to Gerry Anderson.
Oh, now that's interesting that it was your first introduction.
I used to watch Terrahawks as a child, quite a lot as a child, and I really thought it was very good. It was very dramatic, good characters, and it was really, really enjoyable. I've recently, at your request in preparation for this, rewatched episodes of it,
Hmm.
and my view has changed.
Oh,
It
interesting.
is, it's actually really, really quite bad. I don't know if I'm in a minority with that opinion, or if it's the universal view, but it, it's very, very much driven by what's going on. This we're going to do this. Let's just go over here and do it. We've done that now. Moving on.
I'm a little older. I was a teenager and I was well aware of Gerry Anderson's stuff. I had a load of Thunderbirds and Stingray annuals at home, and I'd seen various episodes. And it was definitely ITV when I watched it. The first time I was aware of it, I was getting a magazine called Space Voyager, and they had this report on this Japanese toy fair. And one of the highlights was this is the first photographs of the vehicles from the new Gerry Anderson program. So that was kind of the first time I was, oh, he's coming back. He's doing a new series. The toys were okay. They were a little plain, and I discovered later on this was actually a bit of a manufacturing error in that I think they were meant to have sort of decals and detailing
Mm.
on them, and for some reason they weren't made, so they were these rather plain blank shapes of toys.
I've got to be honest, I don't remember seeing any Terrahawks toys, but like I said, I was quite young when it was on.
Mhm. There
Um,
were a few. There was some action figures I remember came out, and there was a clockwork Zeroid.
oh, that must have been quite good. I used to I like gadgets and gizmos, so the Zeroids were, yeah, I was fond of those.
Well, there you are. That's something you have in common with Gerry Anderson. He loves his gadgets and gizmos, as we will no doubt be getting into shortly.
I should think so.
So I was aware of Terror, and then it came on. So I definitely watched the first few episodes. I was a bit sort of underwhelmed by it, to be honest, at that point. But I think that's
Hmm.
partly because I was a teenage boy, and then worse than that, a teenage science fiction fan. And you're at an
Oh,
age,
so you were hypercritical, possibly.
yeah, a bit critical,
Yeah.
wanting everything to be a bit serious, and which is ridiculous, really, for a children's program. Only many years later, now that I'm older and wiser, that I can see the quality of Terrahawks and many of the things that it does very well. And I don't think it's nearly as much of a departure from other Gerry Anderson shows that I think some fans, including Gerry Anderson, sort of think it is.
No, looking back on it with the benefit of hindsight, I agree with you on that. But I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on its first broadcast through those eyes. I didn't like the silly episodes. I wanted it to be quite serious because I'd grown up through the 80s with things like Thundercats and He-Man and what have you, and Mask, and they were all quite serious. And it treated the kids with a level of respect rather than basically dicking about on screen with silly storylines. So, from your teenage perspective, I get it. Again, looking back though, with the benefit of history, yeah, I can absolutely see. And I think it's true of a lot of kiddies' TV programs. They're made by adults for adults. They just happen to be packaged as a kids' entertainment program. It's only looking at some of these things years later you realize there's a lot of references and a lot of humor and basically directed at the adults who are watching over kids' shoulders.
The plots are very linear. The characters are about as deep as an inch of water, and it's just yeah. Now I would say, however, as it goes on, I imagine that they will have developed those characters and given them degrees of depth. But from the season 3 episodes that I saw, I'm not too sure of that. Because it does seem to me as though the premise of the episodes are Zelda wants to attack Earth. She attacks Earth. They repel the attack. Repeat.
As is usual when we're looking at an ongoing series with a lot of episodes, I ask the guests to pick a favourite episode as a way of getting into it. Actually going to go first with my choice, which is the pilot story, which is a two-parter called "Expect the Unexpected." I shall ask you, Ken, what did you think of the opening story?
First things first, that music and the opening titles, it really pulls you in straight away. Theme by Richard Harvey. It is very sort of Sylvester Levy in its style. It screams the early 80s. Animation by Kevin Davis, actually, but it looks very much like Rod Lord. It's that Hitchhiker's Guide style of animation, and it's really well done. I love a good theme tune. If you've got a theme tune and a title sequence, you won half the battle.
Very compelling as a piece of
Mm.
music, as a theme tune. I think it's really good.
Absolutely, it is one I like a lot. That it does stay in the mind. It's got a very catchy sort of fanfare to
It
it.
does. And bizarrely, I prefer the closing theme over the opening theme. I think there's just something about that noughts and crosses version of the theme that is even better than the opening. However, the episode itself, curious choice to start with a two-parter. But since these are only 25 minutes long, it's no different to the opening of Thunderbirds or any of the, Stingray was only half an hour. But it's a curious choice, but it works. There's so much to say about this first story. I'll start with a niggle, a real tiny niggle. Neinstein doesn't appear on the screen. Everybody else gets their name on screen in the opening credits. Neinstein, half of his is cut off. Good grief, that's an anal niggle. But the episode itself, it opens with a lovely film sequence. I mean, the whole series is done on film, but it's just directed so well. Mars is attacked within 3 minutes, and within those 3 minutes, you have the whole premise of the series. Zelda and her, a fleet of 7 ships. They all attack Mars, destroy the Mars base, land on it, set up. Everything is explained in that 3 minutes. So bang, you're straight into. There's no setup. There's no wasting time with this. And then you cut straight to the White House. So, which is the facade for the Terrahawks base for Hawk Nest. And then we go into the Thunderbirds launch sequence where the house splits apart and, rocket launches to intercept Mars. And although, having said that, Hero launches the rocket, and we get the first bit of lazy racism.
Oh yes, that is something.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. This is going to be a bit of a theme, unfortunately, with Terrahawks, because they actually had a really tiny voice cast. Actually,
Oh, they did. Yeah.
And so it's perhaps understandable why, in doing all the supporting characters and even regulars, like Hito, people go very broad and distinctive kind of voices. I mean, possibly they thought it matched the puppets because the puppets are kind of exaggerated to some extent. They're a little bit grotesque. Sounds quite a critical word, but I'm using it in a perhaps more caricatured kind of look to them.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, this is 22, 23 years after Thunderbirds, and it's very clear that there's not as much money been spent on it, and production values are not 22 years further down the line. In fact, beyond the odd static scene in the whole series, in the whole run, you never see the Terrahawks' legs. So you'll never see them walking about. That said, there is some rather lovely model work, and there's some inventiveness behind the models. So, like I said, the White House splitting open. There's another vehicle launches through a splitting tree. Kate Kestrel and Hawkeye, they will launch through a sort of vortex up through the ocean that's cleared so they could. It's all typical Gerry Anderson inventiveness that really no one else has quite managed to capture in the same way. There's been plenty of inventive kiddies TV series, but nothing really in terms of how the vehicles work and fit together and launch has rivaled any of that Gerry Anderson stuff for me.
Oh, he definitely had a love of secret entrances
Absolutely.
and things that transform and convert and are not as they seem. It's a definite running theme through most of the Supermarionation. In fact, also his UFO as well. Well, like I say, he loves the launch sequence. He loves the whole kind of things folding away and revealing other stuff. And the launch sequences in Terrahawks, I think, all stand up as well as Thunderbirds and Stingrays launch
Absolutely, yes.
sequences. Absolutely. I mean, you can tell it's Gerry Anderson wrote the first story, and you can sort of, it's got his stamp, like he tends to write the first episode of most of his series.
Very much so. It's a kind of setting up and establishing what is going to be happening. So you find out where they are, what they do, what their reason for being is, who they're going to be fighting against. Because they spend the majority of the series, if I remember correctly, perhaps you'll be able to help me on this one, fighting just Zelda, who seems to be a new foe that's just come out of nowhere. I'm not too sure what they were for before Zelda turned up. Like, why did they exist then? Do you
I think it just gives the impression that Dr. Einstein felt that Earth was going to be attacked by somebody. There was some alien threat. He either has an incredible private fortune that we never really find out about, or he's a very good negotiator and has been able to talk all the governments into funding this passion project of his.
I can imagine a rationale for that. If there was no threat and they just wanted to set it up in case there's a threat, it sounds like he wanted a jolly. Get the government to fund his vanity project with lots of lovely houses everywhere that's hidden underground with aircraft and things like that they could fly around the place and just basically live the life of a Top Gun, never being attacked, never needing to do anything. And then suddenly an actual foe turns up and it's like, oh crap, we're going to have to work now. We've got to do something about it.
So there is that kind of formula. He wants to introduce all the vehicles. I was just going to look at inventing model work and things changing into. I particularly like Zelda's fleet. I remember when watching that the first time, where it starts off as a fleet and then they all sort of connect together into the base. And I absolutely love that kind of thing, as well as being quite a violent opening as well for a children's show, even though we don't see anybody.
You massacre an entire starbase and hear all those screams as they die. Yeah, nice kid. You'd never get away with that now. But what it did, again, things you don't think of when you're a kid. There's only 3 of them, yet there's 7 ships. And who's flying those others? So, but Zelda's only in the first one. And although you hear her voice a couple of times cackling, she only appears 4/5 of the way through this first episode.
Keeping his powder dry, because Zelda is a terrific character. It's interesting with the Gerry Anderson series. They don't really do villains. They don't tend to have big villains in them. There's a lot of gangsters, a lot of spies. In them. I mean, the Hood is kind of a more comic strip kind of supervillain, but Zelda is definitely this huge panto supervillain character, and she's an absolute pleasure to have on the screen. Especially, I mean, I think she must have been quite. Were you ever frightened by Zelda?
Not really. I think that I do remember when I was a kid the grotesquerie of it. So I remember Youngstar eating all that green slime all the time, and it was just the you could basically smell them through the screen. They didn't. They were just unsavory. They just grubby more than anything else. I didn't like that aspect of it. You know, the host of creepy characters on the Martian side. Well, I mean, we'll get onto that in a bit. But even Sistar and Boy Girl, Girl Boy, Burl Goy, but they killed.
Burgoy, that was it.
But it was something else as well. It had a couple of names.
Was it called also It Star?
It Star, that's it, yes. How familiar are you with the rest of the series?
I've watched a fair amount of it in preparation for this podcast.
I only ask because there's a very, very bizarre episode which I quite deliberately steered us away from. A Christmas Miracle. It's like, good Lord, what's going on there? That's like some horrible cheese dream.
It is. Well, I think it does turn out to be a dream, I think, at the end. But
it's never explicitly stated, so it's a bit odd.
It is a weird episode. At one point I was going to do a Christmas special and just do that episode because there's enough in there.
There's quite a bit to unpack there, yeah.
It is marvelously an eccentric series. I mean, Expect the Unexpected is fairly conventional as stories go. Its main aim is obviously to introduce all the characters and all the vehicles, and then have the first of many traps that Zelda sets.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first trap at the end of the first episode is Tiger's trapped on board Zelda's ship, flying away. How's he going to get out of this? He's not. He orders Hero to fire. Hero ums and ahs for a bit and then fires. Cue end of episode. Da-da! How's he going to get out of this? We already know he's a clone, so there's a good possibility he might die. That's in the first 23 minutes. So as an opening episode, top marks, Gerry Anderson. You've got everything in there, really, that you need to hook the audience. It's not quite Thunderbird's level of great, but it's pretty bloody good. But then we go on to part 2. So Hero's fired on Zelda's ship, blows it up, and Tiger just magically reappears on board the Hawkwing with some utter bollocks explanation as to how he survived. He's awful to Zero, and as a reason, because the women are stood in the doorway overhearing this, he ends up looking like a bit of a dick, to be honest.
I was surprised just how dickish Neinstein is in this series.
Yeah, he's not very pleasant.
The way he's constantly belittling the super cute Zeroids who are like so appealing and marvelous. It's a strange choice, although there is some precedent for it. Because if you ever, I don't know how much Stingray you've watched, but Troy Tempest.
Quite a bit, but yeah. Oh, well, I always used to, even when I saw the repeats in the early 90s, and it always used to strike me that even though Troy Tempest was a bit of a dick, he'd still somehow managed to pull Marina. Yeah, why on earth would she stick around?
I know, particularly there's an episode. I'm going slightly off topic here, but
welcome to the Exton Moss experiment.
There's an episode where he becomes the richest. They find this fabulous treasure underground, and he becomes the richest man in the world. And he makes his friends his servants.
I can't quite remember it, but it sounds very Troy Tempest, yeah.
It's bizarre. So unfortunately, Neinstein, there is some precedent there for how we started talking about characters. I think we should move on, carry on this vein a little bit with the rest of the Terrahawks.
Well, they survive. Obviously, Tiger survives with some very unlikely explanation as to why. We've already met Hero, who is he's got his nice arboreum up on the orbiter, and then we've got Kate Kestrel, who is she's the sexy one. Kate Kestrel, this really lovely black singer with changeable curly hair, and her wingman Hawkeye. Now, when they're at the champagne party in the evening, celebrating the fact that he's not dead, Hawkeye is leaning over the piano as Kate plays and sings, and he is gazing at her with all the intensity of a man whose loins are on fire. He is clearly in love with Kate.
I was going to say Hawkeye is a bit of the kind of least of the characters. He doesn't. I mean, apart from being Texan, there's not a lot to him really.
Not really. And from memory, it's been quite a because I bought the box set, probably about 15 years ago now. And I watched them all with my now ex-wife because she was very heavily into this. I remember that Hawkeye and Kate sort of about halfway, 2/3 into the series, just largely disappear from all the stories. They're not in a good number of the later episodes. It's just really Tiger and Mary and heroes about in the background. But no, sadly, Hawkeye is the least served of the characters in the whole series. He barely says anything.
The only thing I really know about him is that he flies that top part of the plane, the top part of the.
Well, someone's going to do it.
Yeah. Whereas Kate Kestrel, at least, she is. Well, she's got a whole. Out of all of them, she has really the most background because of her pop star double life.
Yes, and she's also got a personality, which helps.
That does help, yes.
None of the others really do. Mary she sort of simpers over Tiger. Mary and Tiger are clearly in a relationship of sorts, although there's no love there, is there? It's a very perfunctory relationship. They're not ripping each other's clothes off every night. It's very much hot cocoa by the fire and then an early night.
Yes, it's a very English romance going on between them. Yeah. Similarly, Mary she sounds disturbingly a bit like Margaret Thatcher at times. She's kind of got that voice that Margaret Thatcher.
It is a little staid, yes.
But she's a little bit there. She's kind of the voice of conscience. To sort of combat Neinstein's gittishness.
But having said that, Neinstein in the early episodes is quite flirty with Katie over the comm. Now, what the hell's going on at Hawk Nest? There's some love triangle going on.
Well, it might have been. They could have been harking back to Stingray. In fact, I was thinking of all the Anderson series that Terrahawks is closest to. I think it's Stingray because of the humour. And Stingray was fairly comic a lot of the time. There's something about the look of them because it's those early days and Stingray. Everyone's got again that very caricatured kind of look to them, larger than life look to them. And so it could have been that when they were setting up the Bible for this series, they thought, maybe there will be a bit of a triangle there.
In the second, I mean, I've another shout out here to the music, the incidental music. It's all Sylvester Levay and that Airwolf-esque incidental music. I love all that. It really sets the tone of the thing. It does feel sort of near-futuristic. And then just as, they're really ramping this thing up because they decide that there's some energy source that they've missed. Battle Tank and the Megazoids put in an appearance. Again, another vehicle,
it looks like an ideal toy. I don't think they did a toy of the Mega Tank. I'm prepared to write in if I'm wrong.
In the back of my mind, I seem to remember a lad I went to school with did have Battle Tank. I think they did because I seem to remember the Megazoid sort of they clicked in the top. You could rotate them and they clicked as you turn them. Unless I'm just completely making that up. But yeah, as Gareth said, do write in.
How could I forget the Zeroids, which I think are an absolutely ingenious design, and I'm surprised they weren't a bigger hit, really, with toys and stuff, because I think they are an ingenious idea.
Well, they are, and I love that because I used to, again, the anal side of me, I used to write down the numbers of all the ones I used to spot on screen. I mean, the model work on the whole, starting right from the beginning, is pretty good. There's the odd bit where it's a little bit ropey, but the Foley work more than covers up for it. I have to say that sound-wise, they've really got this series down well. So hats off to you for that. It did surprise. There's the odd sort of bit of silliness or unbelievability about it. Zelda in part two tries to demonstrate how trustworthy she is by building them a bypass, complete with road markings, I notice. Oh, but then we get a chance for Hudson to be introduced. The
After all of
uber
it.
British Rolls Royce that can blend in with its surroundings by changing colour. He tells Neinstein off for not being proper enough, and it's so disdainful.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good, fun little character. I think at the time, probably as a kid, I was hoping for something a bit more James Bondy in terms of hidden weapons and whatnot. But now I can see it's a good, just a fun. It would have been quite fun if it actually made him even more Jeevesy and coming up with ideas and.
He's just quite so. Oh, he seemed to be in trouble again. Oh well, I suppose it's down to me to get us out of it. It's so disdainful. No, nothing's going to phase this car, and even Tiger's sort of got a respect for the machine. But of all the voice, because it is well, like you said, it's a small cast, but it is well voiced. Got a shout out here, Windsor Davis. I think he,
Oh,
in many scenes, steals the show as Sergeant Major Zero.
it is a inspired casting for Sergeant Major Zero, and like you say, it's just a delight to hear him. His timing is so on. I think one of the little minor tragedies of British television is that with It Ain't Half Hot Mum, which doesn't get shown for obvious reasons that much, and yet within it you've got Windsor Davis
Mm.
giving such a I just love watching him in that show because it's such a good performance and it's so funny and real at the same time.
Well, the Sergeant Major who plays in that takes the job very seriously. It's like was said about the Brigadier in Doctor Who. He doesn't know he's the funniest man in the room, and that
Mm,
makes him the funniest man in the room because
mm,
he's so. I don't. I look at archive television with the benefit of it was made when it was made. Attitudes were different. If you go through archive TV 21st century washing them, you're going to be consistently disappointed by everything you see on screen. You have to look at it through the prism of this was made
mm.
50 years ago.
Oh
We're better than
yeah.
that now. Enjoy it for what it is, but I think It Ain't Half Hot Mum actually it's a rather good little series, and it starts off. I remember the ending of the closing moments of the very first episode are actually quite serious, and
Mm.
it doesn't shy away from the unpleasant side of what no, they never look comfortable. They're always covered in glycerin sweat the whole way through, so it just looks. I think that's a bit of an underrated series now. It's been,
Yes, I actually loved watching it as a child with my
mm,
family, and like I said, watching it now, it's well, I mean, it's full of good performances,
it is, it is.
but particularly Windsor Davis's character, I just love his delivery of lines and his timing. I will select the volunteer.
God love them, man. Yeah, they got that one spot on. Well done for securing his services.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think one of the good things about the Terrahawks as a whole is that Tony Barwick, who wrote most of the episodes, sometimes under pseudonyms to
Yeah.
disguise that he was writing most of it, is that he very much leans into the humor of it. I think he saw these puppets which have the rubbery, they've got a little bit of a spitting image
Yeah.
kind of feel to them. And he sort of thought, well, we can't go the kind of super serious Captain Scarlet kind of vibe with these
Mm.
guys. We've got to be push the humor. And to me, that's what makes the series enjoyable now, watching it as an adult, is that apart from one episode that we're going to come to, it's generally not sophisticated humor. It takes me back to Stingray, I think, really. It has a similar sense of humor to Stingray.
Yeah. I definitely need a sense of humour and to maintain it. A series like that, which would be completely serious, would be pretty difficult to watch
Hmm.
without a good sense of humor. And I think it does have it, but it
Mm.
is something you have to find.
I mean, there's a whole host of monsters and characters on the Zelda side of things. They're
Mm.
peppered through this thing. They really do world build within that. The closing moments, the closing shot of Expect the Unexpected is Sram, roaring monster that can destroy purely with his voice and shatter rocks and things with his roar. Cue end credits. So already you've got that hook for the week after. There's something to pull you in.
Actually, I remember, yeah, being genuinely intrigued by that ending. And it is a great ending. You're seeing Stram shrouded in dry ice at the end. And I quite like this little bit of mythology that I think they could have made more of, that apparently over the centuries of traveling to Earth, she's built up this kind of ragtag army of misfits and renegades, which and there are some very imaginative aliens in a lot of the. We haven't got time, sadly, to go through them all, but
We haven't. I remember a handful. I remember Lord Tempo, the Lord of Time,
mm,
and the scariest one of all is coming up in our next
mm.
episode.
I was going to say I was holding him back for the next episode. Before we move on to that episode, is there anything else about Expect the Unexpected? Yeah,
No, I've
you've
gone through
you've
my notes. I am yes,
oh,
we've
jolly
covered.
good.
But it
Good.
was as an opening to the series. I was I was jolly impressed. I mean, I'm now looking through the eyes of an adult, and
Hmm.
I can see all the little things that you would want from the opening of a series, and it ticks those boxes. So, yeah, cracking start, Gerry Anderson. Well done.
Is there anything else about the opening two-parter, Expect the Unexpected, that you kind of wanted to say?
Yeah, just that the role of the pilot or opening episodes, or call them what you will, is to establish the series and then keep it going. If I was to ask myself, would I watch more of this based on the strength of the opening episode? Probably not, no. Because I don't know why. What's the point? There's no characters there. There's nothing really to hook on to yet. That may well develop, but by that point, viewers have turned off. So it needed to explain why we should keep watching it right from the start. It was enough to keep me watching as a child.
We will move on to Catch a Tiger.
Basically, once you've seen this episode, you've seen the entire series. Given it will be variations on a theme. I'm being very
Mhm.
harsh about it, probably harsher than I should be, but yeah.
Get the profanity buzzer ready. Mo- Moid is scary as good lord. I mean, that is nightmare fuel for a kid. This skeletal face with these big eyes in the sockets just staring out. You would not get away with this now. That is terrifying.
I'd agree there. I think is the story that introduces him, and the first time you see that face, right at the end of the episode, because he's a chameleon, he's been impersonating other people, and he see his face and said, I have no face of my own."
So, I mean, he's brought into the story in for this episode to torture Tiger Einstein to death with a fairly graphically obvious array of weapons and devices, which you know exactly what they're going to do to him. And he's off away in his chamber, getting all these lovely toys ready to play with. Einstein's in the control room, thinking, "Well, I'm going to die anyway." So he gets out his spaceship game and starts playing arcade games in Zelda's room.
Well, to catch a tiger, this is a very, very silly tiger that is quite happy to just wander into your trap willingly, knowing full well where the trap is and knowing what's going to happen, just gets up and walks straight into it and then just sits there and allows it to happen. Does nothing to contribute towards the escape, hardly apart from responding to what other people are trying to do to rescue him, and just sort of wanders through the episode in a daze, just allowing again things to happen, to go from A to B to C, and not really doing anything, not finding anything out whilst he's there, spending his time there playing a game. An opportunity there whilst in the middle of central command of the enemy to even just look around and to find out what the place is about and any potential weaknesses. No, none of that. He's just going to play the computer game. and then just sit and wait, and then walks out of the door, literally walks out the door when Zero turns up and allows him to go. So yeah, I get it's just this tiger. It was wandered in there willingly, and then wandered off at the end. Probably looking back, going, "What was all that?" Because I'm sure the viewers would say that.
I did notice with some interest that they've got a dartboard hanging up in Zelda's main control chamber.
So yeah, we see a bit more of Zelda's family, which are good. Young star. I get it's the voice. I think they gave him a great voice. Yeah. What you said earlier about there is something grimy and unwashed about
Yeah, very
about Young
much.
Star.
Well, I think is it Jeremy Hitchen voices Young Star? Have I got that right?
Yes, you're right, Jeremy Hitchen.
Because there are interviews on the extras DVD with the voice actors. Because the DVD box set, it is actually, for those that have got it, it's all over the place. Some are really, really polished discs, and then others have just been spanked on the disc with no real menu screen at all. It's a curious set. But there is an interview with the voice actors, and he just does that. There's no modulator. He just does that voice in his throat.
Yeah.
The premise of the episode is that there's these two sort of space scavengers on this ship, basically miners and salvage hunters, and they get shot down over Mars and captured and then held to ransom so that they can have Neinstein come along and use them as a bargaining tool. So again, Neinstein gets captured, and once you've got the principle of he's a clone in your head, Zelda's really got her work cut out because she has to kill him 9 times over, and she can't even manage it once. I think there is an episode where they do manage to kill Neinstein, and one of the other clones appears.
Did you understand the plan?
I'll answer the question simply. First of all, no. But from what I can gather, they were going to trigger something off using a song, triggered it off, and then our hero basically needs to make sure that there's something done to the central command station to enable it to happen. Does that thing at the correct time, explosion, leave. I probably missed it.
I'm not actually sure. It seems a very overly complicated way of getting a signal to Neinstein at the right time.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree with that. And the fact that I don't understand the plan is probably possibly a failure on my part as a viewer, not to be paying the necessary amount of attention. Except I was paying attention and I still didn't get it. It does seem overly complicated. The only other film I can think of that fell into the same kind of complex category would be Trading Places. And the only reason I don't really fully understand that at the end is because I'm not an expert on the stock exchange, when they sort of crashed the company for them as revenge.
They somehow mask they right, we're going now, Tiger, bye, good luck, and they fly off and then raise the shields so that they can't be seen on Mars, fly back. Kate Kestrel, back on Earth, somehow encodes a secret message into a live stream of a song she's performing on the radio, beams it to Tiger. He somehow decodes this secret message that, God alone know how he decodes it, because I have no idea what's going on in that song. The Terrahawks re-arrive, recapture Tiger, fly off, everybody save the day. It's all bollocks.
I'm glad I'm not surprised you used the word somehow quite a few times in that plan, because it's not it's one of these things. It has the shape of a plan, but so that everyone does things in an urgent way, and we've got to time this just right. But it actually, none of it makes any sense whatsoever.
None at all. And this one did really fall apart by virtue of it not having any structure at all. I think I quite like that. There's the shape of a plan there. I like that phrase. I'm using that one.
This is not the problem which I was mentioning earlier on about the style of writing. It's very, very ABC. Like A has happened, let's do B. C has occurred, right? We're done. It's this very linear kind of storytelling, and that does apply to the humor as well. In which it's like an episode of Star Trek where they just come across a problem, sort the problem out, and then go. There's no subplot, there's no character development, there's no contention, there's no arguing or anything. It just does what it has to do, and then that's the end. So it becomes quite dull, linear, if with the way it's structured its stories.
If they just thought a little bit more about it, they could have made this a really solid rescue attempt and really quite clever, but it doesn't come off at all.
No, it's not really. Yeah, it could have been a great sort of heist type
Yeah.
episode. No, it's just a lot of movement, ultimately. Been saying how unpleasant Neinstein is. He is at least kind of heroic in this one, and that he doesn't has any qualms about sacrificing himself for two complete strangers, which is suitably heroic. We haven't really talked actually about Nine, although it isn't ultimately an issue in this episode. This whole business about Neinstein having 8 other clones, they're not on ice or anything. They're actually out there living their lives, and it happens. I forget which episode it happens in, and then they need another Neinstein, and they just kind of wipe his brain.
Is that how it works? It's been a long time since I've seen. I do remember at least one where one of the other clones is brought in to step up. I thought they were kept on ice, so I didn't. That makes it even worse if they're out there living lives and they just.
It's fairly nightmarish. I think the Big Finish audios, which I haven't heard, sort of explore this a bit more. I think it's one of those things that Gerry Anderson wrote it down, but I think didn't kind of think of the consequences of it.
It's not the best fleshed out part of it because I don't think we ever get a full explanation of primarily why are the 9 clones. That's never explained.
So I only assumed he kind of cloned himself as a kind of mad scientist kind of project.
To keep himself company after all his own friends have ditched him for being a dick.
But yeah, like I said, there's not a great deal to it. I mean, it's nice to see the Zeroids in action again. 101 is getting sassier, sort of like with each as the series progresses.
No, because him and Zero have a bit of an argument at one point, so they pull rank on each other. I thought, oh, that's quite nice. Because you do tend to get in all these action adventure series, all the good guys get on. None of them. There's no conflict behind closed doors. Every now and again, it's nice to see that little human side. So I quite like that. It wasn't the finest example of Terrahawks. I just think it was a bit of a wasted opportunity. I came away thinking you could have made more of that.
Yes, I think it's a pretty formulaic Zelda laser trap, and Terrahawks seem to fall into it and then get out of it. Actually, we were talking about Zelda, but I'll better talk about this now because she's not really in the next episode, really. But I haven't actually known, but Denise Breyer, and what an amazing voice she found for Zelda.
Well, you look at it, and I don't know how familiar you are with Big Finish.
Some of it, not the Terrahawks at all.
But I know Denise Breyer was in a play called Master quite early on in the run.
Oh, yeah, I have heard that one.
Yeah, well, she played Jacqueline, the doctor's wife. The doctor played by Philip Maddock, his wife. And it's a completely different voice. You would never know. It's not a voice you could think, she played Zelda. It's totally plucked out of the air. And she recreated it perfectly for the Big Finish audios. I've heard snippets of them. I can't say that I was desperately excited by them, to be honest. I should have been, but I wasn't.
Yeah, I don't, even though they are very gifted voice actors. Yeah, Anderson on audio doesn't, I can't
It's
see.
a very visual thing, Gerry Anderson in the puppet series,
working. But Denise Breyer's that cackling, it's one of the great witch voices that she's found there. And it's just an extra fillip that she also voiced the villain in Starfleet, the sort of other 80s puppet show of this time.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that one. I must look that up.
Oh, that's it. Oh, well worth if you get a chance. She plays Commander Makara. It was influenced by Gerry Anderson. It was a Japanese series, but done in the puppet style. It's a much more Star Warsy kind of look to it.
I will look this up. I'm blissfully unaware, but now you've piqued my interest.
Brian May was very fond of it. And actually recorded the theme music. He re-recorded it with Van Halen as a single.
Wow.
Yeah. So yes, seek that out.
But this was the episode, of course, where we were subjected to the idea of torture and things like that by the evil guy. And I think that is the thing. One of the things that and the song are what I'm going to remember the most, and the fact that I just think the whole thing was just a waste of time. None of that needed to have happened. So, and yeah, I mean, if Zelda can't defeat these people, she never is going to.
So, having sort of covered that, I think we should move on. Your choice, which is Cry UFO. Please tell us why you chose this particular episode.
Cry UFO is a bit of an oddity because it doesn't really fit any of the usual Terrahawks mold. I know it's in fan circles, it's quite a popular episode, but the Terrahawks are barely in it. Beyond Kate Kestrel, the rest of the Terrahawks bunch, they make a quick cameo at the end, really. And it's basically a couple of days in the life of Stu Dapples, the technician that works at Kate Kestrel's recording studio.
Well, I didn't think I was watching Terrahawks for the bulk of it. I actually felt, in terms of style, that I was watching an episode of Supernatural or something. It just felt very much a character piece. But yeah,
Um,
I think I out of the episodes I saw, I did enjoy it, and the fact that it doesn't really feature Terrahawks or any Terrahawks elements in that is a damning indictment. That it had to basically reject the entire premise of the whole series in order to produce an enjoyable episode, which is not good, really. It'd be like saying my favorite episode of Doctor Who ever is Love and Monsters. It's like, oh yeah, but there's no Doctor in it.
well, apparently David Tennant is always disappointed when people tell him, that Blink is their favourite Doctor Who story because, of course, that's the one he's hardly in.
It opens up with Stu Dapples having, again, some sort of cheese dream where he's playing a jazz version of the Doctor Who theme in a club. You check it out. That's the Doctor Who theme. It's very American feeling, the series. Clearly, the whole series has been made to appeal to the American market, even though, in your heart of hearts, it's an English series.
Mm.
And it was a curious move to have Stu Dapples, who's putting on this dreadful sort of Rockney attempt at an American accent, and then he lives with his mum, who's all horn-rimmed spectacles and tea and biscuits, and have you washed behind your ears, dear? And so that the whole American thing is somewhat shattered by the inclusion of that.
I built up a little backstory that she was aggressively holding on to her Englishness, sort of like in America.
I'm doing quite a good job. Everyone else in the entire story is sweating profusely, except Stu's mother, who is stoically sweatless.
There we are. She's glowing.
There is another thing I noticed about this particular episode is that there is the Kate Kestrel song catalogue plays as incidental music and background music throughout this entire episode. They've really put the effort in with the music on this one. In fact, I don't know whether I'm making this up. I seem to remember there was actually a commercial release of Kate Kestrel music somewhere.
You are quite right. There was a live action Kate Kestrel to go along with it. And on the making of it's kind of explained that Christopher Burr, as well as wanting to be a TV producer, also quite fancied himself as a record producer as well. A young singer called Moya Griffiths, who played the live action and provided the singing voice of Kate Kestrel. And she's still working. Actually, she's now Moya Rudkin. Now she's does mostly jazz performances.
Well, there you go. Does that mean that Ander Burr Records, with the producer who's only ever seen in silhouette, do you think there was a little bit of self-casting going on there then?
I think there might have been. I think it was like bizarrely in the midst of all the monkeys, is a model here.
Well, it's very much the definition of shoehorn. And given what you've just said there, you can really tell. And that is a solid reason for it. It is basically to showcase and celebrate the talent of people behind the scenes and nothing whatsoever to do with the show, hardly. Although they do tie it in, they try and tie it in, and occasionally, they manage to link it in with the plot. But it's just so random that it becomes a distraction. It's like, what are we doing now? Why is this happening? What? No, so yeah.
The songs are all fairly unmemorable, but
Mm,
at the same time, they do sound like 80s pop.
very much, yeah. They're very well designed for uh, what turned out to be an obscure kids' TV program because this was not massively received. I do seem to remember it was given some sort of graveyard slot on British TV, somewhat unfairly, I think, because I always enjoyed it as a kid. It was never something that I thought, well, it's on.
Mm.
I always actually made an appointment to view this.
I think
So,
it sold reasonably well. I think it
mm,
did well enough in Japan that it has those alternative. Have you seen these? The alternative Japanese opening and closing credits.
I have. They are somewhere in the mists of time. I've seen them on the DVD. I
Yeah.
think, or either that or on the internet somewhere. They're a
Hmm.
curious beast.
They are very curious. I saw a weird mixture of sort of photos of the spaceships and the Zeroids mixed in with Japanese anime. And the end credits feature this young woman, this beautiful young woman walking along the beach, who I have a feeling is meant to be Zelda when before, like thousands of years ago.
Right.
That's just
I,
again, that's my headcanon, that is.
I must look this up and revisit that. I'm sure the tube will deliver the goods.
That's it. I might probably put some links in with the text.
Stu, I notice, drives a manual car. So even that, his Englishness, he is clinging on to. His mum's bought him a manual car. He will not drive one of those automatic monstrosities. He goes to a cafe, and this is where I think the stock molds for Gerry Anderson puppetry kicks in because he's served by a white version of Kate Kestrel with different hair. And Pete, the cafe owner, he looks for all the world just like a slightly rubbed up version of Captain Scarlet. So, but this is where the UFO bit of the episode kicks in because we're a good sort of 5-10 minutes in at this point, and there's a really nice model shot of this
Mm.
massive UFO flying towards, over, and beyond the cafe. Now, it's also this nighttime shot, and the UFO is big and lit up. That's
Mm.
a really lovely shot. I will say this much: they've put the hours in, at least trying to make this thing look good.
Yeah, it's one of the best special effects I think in the series. It absolutely would not look out of place in Close Encounters.
That was very
Really
much what I thought. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
beautiful to look at, and I think I came across a feature. I think there's a feature I came across where they go into detail on how they created it, and it is quite ingenious
Mm.
how they did that and to get the UFO and the reflections on the ground, and it really pays off.
Because nobody believes, even though the cafe is shook to bits and there's ketchup and pictures and smashed glass everywhere, the owners come back in and nobody believes that a UFO has just flown by. But Kate Kestrel does, because Kate Kestrel knows. And we're never given any reason, but she obviously, on the sly, phones the Terrahawks and says, look, we've got a UFO out here, come and destroy it. Which they do. They all, the day after, Stu, because Kate's mining him for information, Stu ends up on a date with Kate Kestrel, the lucky swine. And then the Terrahawks arrive and blow the UFO to shit. Now, within the context of the story, we have no idea what this UFO is. So, from in the context of the story, the Terrahawks just look like rampant xenophobes. They just can blow up something that isn't human. But we're never told what it is or why they've blown it up. But Stu saves the day.
That did strike me that they didn't sort of like try and radio it or contact it or anything. They just go straight in for the kill.
We can come up with a brilliant episode of something and not feature your main cast in it. But they haven't, as far as I can see, they haven't yet established the brilliance of the series, whereby you can get away with that. Then again, this is season 3, and I've only returned to a few episodes, so it may well have turned around. They may well have done the next gen, It was basically you've got a terrible opening season and then fantastic rest of it. That could well have happened. I'd have to watch the whole lot to be able to reach that conclusion. But assuming that didn't happen, then they're taking a break from something without really establishing its greatness in advance, which is a bit, it's a bit wrong.
I can see why it's a fan favorite episode. It's one I enjoyed a lot. I think because it's a little bit more grown up. Well, it's dealing with adult issues about
Yeah.
frustration and inadequacy and unrequited love. Quite what the younger uh, audience made of this one. They probably enjoyed looking at the spaceship. If not,
Well, I thought this as I was watching it that from an adult point of view, this is a lovely character piece. From a kiddie's point of view, what on earth are they getting out of it if they're used to the Zeroids and the battle tank and Zelda and the cubes and some monster, and then they get stewed apples having dreams and pining after Kate Kestrel, and there's no actual anything recognizably familiar in it compared to the usual format. A curious choice, a brave choice in many ways, but I'm not surprised that the older viewers love it.
It's a good episode. It's the kind of episode, as I said, that you can only really make after you have established yourself as a great series, in order to move away from your characters and establish them in a different way, and to introduce them in a different kind of way. But assuming they've done that, then great, wonderful. If they haven't done that, then it's dangerous.
I mean, Kate Kestrel comes off very well in this one. She's quite caring in a way. That she's sort of so she doesn't love Stu, but clearly cares about him, try and boost his confidence.
Kate comes off very well in this, yes, I must agree. Yeah.
It is a lovely episode. I mean, it's one of those episodes where you think, oh, I could show somebody this, but then you think they wouldn't really get any if they never watched Terrahawks before. It's a bit like showing people Blink from Doctor Who, because
yes, exactly.
it's great, but it is not a conventional Terrahawks episode. And I quite like Stu Dapples. He's a fun character.
Yeah. His voice reminds me of a character off Spitting Image, although I can't remember which one it is. I can't pin. It's just this sort of mad pop star voice that they've given him. It's a bit like Cliff Richard on Speed.
Out of the 3 episodes we're talking about today, I'd say Cry UFO most entertained me.
I'll probably go with that, actually. I expect the unexpected, a very good start. To Catch a Tiger, I could take one. That's a very forgettable one, I'm afraid. It sort of melds into the background of pretty much every other episode. It's standard runaround fare. I mean, we say that like Terrahawks is some great deep series. The vast majority were Zelda hatches some flimsy plan that the Terrahawks launch all their weapons for, and then she flies away and isn't harmed at all. Or there's very little direct interaction between the Terrahawks and Zelda. It's all via some third party, some massively convoluted scheme that comes to nothing every week. So
in that ways, it is very much a classic children's series.
Yes,
to that extent, and we are in danger of falling into the trap of overanalyzing it. As fun as that is, it does.
Would you say because of that, as people grow up, they would forget it rather than endear it and give it cult status? So whilst things like Captain Scarlet has gained that sort of memorable cult status as watch it as a child, then you become an adult and you still watch it as an adult, with Terrahawks, because it's just so clearly aimed at children despite the ultra-violence, you forget it. You don't want to return to it. It doesn't have that sufficient depth to it to keep you intrigued as an adult, whereas the others do.
I think I'd agree with that. I think it is a mark of a series, whether they're childish or sort of child friendly. I'm not sure, or if it's aimed at a family or it's just at children, really, because there's plenty of things that can only be watched when you're a child. And there are some things have that other level, like Magic Roundabout for
Well, yeah,
example.
exactly. I mean, another example, Dogtanian,
Mm.
and before that, Family Nest. BBC One would show them both side by side on a Saturday morning each week.
Mm.
I don't know if you recall. 8:30 Family Nest, 8:35 Dogtanian. Now, fast forward to adulthood. Still quite happy to watch Dogtanian, not watching Family Nest
No,
because it just
that's
hasn't have the depth.
yeah. Dogtanian is actually this is still quite watchable if you're in the
Yeah,
right mood. It helps it's based on a classic novel, but it just has a bit richer characterization and other
exactly. So
yeah.
there's got to be something there for the fans as they get older or for adults at point of broadcast. And
Mm.
Terrahawks lacks that. I don't think it has it.
Mm.
So it is purely a children's series. So as those fans get older, they don't watch it anymore because they've grown up and there's not getting anything from it anymore. There's nothing new to
Mm.
find out about it.
So this is moving on to kind of the last question, which is rather grandly the legacy of Terrahawks.
Terrahawks, I don't think stands a chance of coming back. It's not in the annals of Gerry Anderson fame. I don't think it's widely popularly remembered. I've hosted quiz nights for 25 years, and people they remember Zelda, but they can't remember what program she's from or what it's about. If I said Terrahawks to somebody, they don't generally equate it with Gerry Anderson.
The one thing they could bring back, and I don't think they need to do a series of Terrahawks to do this, would be just the Zeroids and the
Mm.
little box robot things. I think those placed into a different setting with that kind of non-stereotypical voices in a different context. I think those that'd be really interesting. The idea of these
Mm.
robots that can just move around in circles, roll around and things like that. I think that'd be worth exploring.
Yeah, I could see them in a sort of like 5 minute episode kind of shorts
Yeah.
with the it's Zeroid time or whatever
Mm.
with the yeah, I can imagine that because I think they were the most fun part.
I think it's a great series. I think it's a cracking little series, and certainly for myself, I've got very fond esoteric memories of it. Don't think the wider audience have, but then again, I would be interested to look up when this was transmitted because I think it was probably given a bit of a bum deal in terms of the slot. I don't
Mm.
think that will have helped. If it was, as my memory serves, broadcast on a Sunday in the afternoon, not
Yes,
the most
you're right
popular.
there.
So that was the Lost in Space slot, the High Chaparral, all the Follyfoot and all that. That was what you bunged everything on Sunday that was cheap. And Terrahawks is not. It was shiny and new in those days. So not quite sure why it was bundled there. As far as the legacy is concerned, I think I'm right in saying this was his last puppet series. Oh no, it was
Yeah,
not. It was not.
well,
Although there is another one,
there's Dick
which
Spanner.
Dick Spanner, which I absolutely adore, but not exactly for kiddies.
Yeah,
That's a little more adult. It's not smutty or
it's no more than Carry On. It's very punny
yeah,
sort of humour.
but it wasn't. I don't think that was intended as a kids series.
Mm.
The look and the design and the style are all really good. It's very,
Mm.
very top quality stuff. The music, the visuals, the sets, the characters, they're all really, 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 yeah, it's all really good. You
Mm.
can see there's a lot of work and a lot of love has gone into it. I think the main problem with Terrahawks, as I said, is the writing. And I think
Mm-hmm.
because things like the visuals and everything else is fantastic, it wasn't. They were not well served by this resistance to depth, this resistance to introduce your characters, which really, 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 really didn't do it any favors at all.
Mm. I think it suffers a bit that it was made on 16mm film, which
Mm,
makes it look a bit cheaper than
okay.
earlier Supermarionation series. It's
Yeah.
interesting, the copies that are on ITV, they're like the original 16mm
Mm,
episodes. And I have seen a bit of the Blu-ray when they did that. And when it's cleaned up and they've got it all shiny and high definition, it looks fine next to Thunderbirds and Captain
mm,
Scarlet. It looks as
mm,
good, and
mm.
I think Gerry Anderson was still pretty good at designing technology.
Yeah.
I think the various Hawk ships and and Hudson, the car,
Well,
all worked well. I think Terrahawks has suffered a bit because it's not part of the ITC era, so it never gets kind of, when they sell those series as a package to television stations around the world, it doesn't include Terrahawks. So I think it's suffered a bit from that. I think it's also suffered, apparently, Gerry Anderson himself was quite dismissive of it in later
Really?
years. Apparently, he was sort of, when it was brought up at conventions, he'd kind of list all the things he didn't like about it. Generally, was happier talking about his successes, and he rather considered it a bit of a failure, sadly, which I think is very unfair, because I think it does succeed in being a good children's series, and it did. I think it had enough of a success that they it went beyond the original 13 episodes, and they were successful enough that they made more of them.
I think like quite a few Anderson series, there were two very uneven series, weren't there? If memory serves.
It's a bit confusing because, as far as I understood it, Terrahawks has got 2 seasons, but some places seem to split it up into 3 seasons.
Always held Terrahawks really close to my heart because I loved it as a child. And now, because of you, Gareth, I have now lost that because I can't romanticize it anymore because it's just not very good.
I'm sorry.
You can't escape the reality. It's just not very good.
I can only apologise.
No, don't apologise. I had to have a waiting because I've been going around telling people for years that Terrahawks is great, that it's one of the best series for kids that was made in the 80s and things, and that's really, really very much defendable, and it's fantastic. No, it's not that at all. It's just, it's a self-indulgence, if anything.
So, I've enjoyed talking about Terrahawk, but now I'd like to talk a little bit about what you've been getting up to yourself. What's in the future for Ken Moss?
Oh, well, that's very nice of you to ask, Gareth. Well, some listeners may know me from the Extermos experiment. I've done that for quite a few years now with my good mate Simon Exton, and we look at archive TV. Currently we've got a few episodes due out. We've got one which is Doctor Who Logopolis, a commentary on that in memory of Christopher Bidmead, the script editor. We've got a couple of episodes due with Boys from the Peggy Mount Calamity Hour, which is a very, very irreverent archive TV podcast.
It is a very good podcast, as is the Extra Moss, of course.
We do our best. And so we've crossed over. We've got an episode on Dungeons and Dragons and Mr. and Mrs. coming out with them. We've got a terrible ITV movie from the mid-90s called Murder on the Moon, which we're about to pull to pieces. And we've got episodes due on the Pogles and Escape into Night for our Halloween special. And then over Christmas, we've got The Stone Tape.
Oh, that is such a brilliant, superb TV film, that one.
Well, I'm currently finishing off writing a book on Boris Johnson. And I've also got another book coming out soon on Conservative Party history. And another book coming out on Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss's premierships. Also working on journal articles as usual, and just producing more publications really. Also, I'm going to start working with Oxford to produce a series of short videos on political figures, starting off with Margaret Thatcher. I'm going to be partnering with the colleague with the academics at Oxford for that. So I'm going to be back behind the camera.
Hey,
and that's it really.
Well, I've had a great time looking back at Terrahawks and watching it and talking about it with you.
Likewise, thank you very much for asking me on. It's been a pleasure talking about it. Thank you, Gareth.
You're welcome.
And brilliant stuff. So thank you, and thank you at home for listening. We'll be back soon.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Bye-bye for now. Terrahawks was available in compilations on VHS from Channel 5 in 1984. It was released as a complete set on DVD in 2004 by Network, who later released a Blu-ray version in 2017. Big Finish Productions made an audio continuation featuring some of the original voice actors, beginning in 2015. At the time of recording, it is available to stream on ITVX. Very British Futures is hosted and produced by Gareth Preston, with special guests Andrew Crines and Ken Moss. Music by Chattery Art. If you can take a moment to rate us on your podcast app, that would be very much appreciated. You can get in touch with us via verybritishfuturespodcast@gmail.com, follow us on X @FuturesVery, or visit our Facebook page. This has been a Phantom Frame production.